Good afternoon or morning, everybody. Welcome to Everyone Hates Us, a podcast dedicated to the art of winning and the beautiful sport of baseball. I'm your host, Euno Lee, joined by my co-host, Daniel Grievitz, and Collin Murphy, who celebrated his birthday this past weekend. You're not done celebrating, are you, Collin?
Well, today's my actual birthday, so yes,
I didn't
I'm
want to
not done.
dox you or
Yes.
you want to recite your social security number into the microphone as well?
I think there's enough public info on that someone really cared they could figure that out. Plus I got my $1 check from was it Equifax for the credit leak way back in the day.
There you go.
So I just assume that information's already gone.
You know what's crazy? Those leaks are always like, it's like, it sounds like the scariest thing in the world. And then if I dig into it, I'll find that like, yeah, your email address leaked. And I was like, oh yeah, that explains all the weird phishing attempts. It's like, oh, your name leaked. I'm like, oh God, anything but my name. So it always helps to like look into it a little bit more and see what actually leaked. Um, well, happy birthday, Collin.
Thank
And
you.
we won't say how old you're turning again to avoid doxing you, but also to preserve your reputation.
Appreciate it.
We've got a great show for you today, guys. Of course, we've got your World Series preview, a little bit about the Clippers. We'll be talking about the Clippers, who will be celebrating, shall I say, the opening of their new home, the Intuit Dome in Inglewood, California. We're going to dunk on the NFL schedule a little bit, see if we're going to hammer some picks, and then do a quick Stadium X Awards, Stadium Experience Awards, all right? Before we get to that, though, October 23rd is the day. On this day, in 1964, Smokin' Joe Frazier won the heavyweight boxing gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics. And you're probably thinking, October? Olympics? But the 2020 Tokyo Olympics weren't even the first Tokyo Olympics to be postponed. That honor goes to the 1964 games, which were delayed by 2 months to avoid the midsummer humidity and the September typhoon season. Right? So that's your little fact of the day, October 23rd. Smokin' Joe Frazier won the gold. All right. Moving on, if you're tuning in to the podcast on YouTube, you might notice that we've started a new slideshow format. There's only one skill I picked up working at a tech startup. It's creating Google Slides very quickly. And the guys will attest that I really just like cobbled this together yesterday, but hopefully it kind of helps with like as a visual guide to kind of move things along. All right. But before we get to the slides, I think it's time, boys. Something happened last week. All right. It's time to eulogize the New York Metropolitans, owned by Steve Cohen, the guy who once made a $750 million cash infusion to Melvin Capital during the GameStop short squeeze. The Mets fans are all saying the same thing. It was fun. We didn't expect to be here. And that's a very Mets fan thing to say, you know. But I want to remind Mets fans that your team paid $87 million in dead money this year to players who are no longer on your team. It would make your dead money the 27th largest payroll in baseball. Okay. So I just wanted to point to the opening slides, and there was a little bit of beef towards the end of that series. Dan, I don't know if you remember. Andy Pages in Game 5,
Yeah,
hits a jack, right? And then he kind of pimps it a little bit, you know? And then he rounds the bases as Alvarez is like fuming. He's fuming. He sees Pages coming down the third baseline to home, and he says some BS, and he gets all up in his grill. And then Andy Pages, of course, then hits another home run and does the exact same thing. And, Alvarez, like, look at the scoreboard, right? Basically, he's just like, your team's down, whatever it was, like, 12-6 or something. Francisco, look at your franchise. Look at your season, okay? Is that really the bone you want to pick? You gave up a NLCS record 46 runs to the other team, and you want to talk about scoreboard? So that kind of sums up the Mets season. I'm sure they thought it was fun. We didn't find it very amusing. We found the bullpen really fun, I thought. We found their pitching very fun, especially after the first Manaea start. When we saw him a second time, that was pretty fun. Other than that,
I had fun.
I had fun. We just don't think the Mets actually really had that much fun. And these covers will these New York Post covers, which I gotta say, in a digital age of media, like in the digital age, right, of media, it's hard to see these kind of like print publications have these iconic statuses, like iconic places in culture. And shout out to the New York Post, man. They are the pioneer, the OG of New York sports fan doom and gloom. Like they are. I mean, nobody does it better than them. It's
Nothing
just
like New York Post toxicity. It really just
dude, it's the best. Look at these headlines. West Toast. Mets get scorched in a total Hollywood horror show. You know, looking grim with a sad guy in a grimace costume. Like, oh my gosh, this is your city's paper. That's rough.
should have gone with the grimace drinking the Modelo.
Oh my gosh. He was drinking it for a while. I loved it. Oh God. Let's get on to the show. All right. So, okay, guys. Rob Manfred is officially, somebody needs to hose this guy down. The Los Angeles Dodgers clinched the NLCS on Sunday as spot to the World Series, the 2024 World Series, to face the New York Yankees. This Friday, 5 p.m. is Game 1 on Fox. And I need your guys' take right off the bat. Is a Dodgers-Yankees World Series good or bad for baseball? Let's start with Murph.
Okay. I mean, I don't really believe too much in like certain matchups being good or bad for the sport. I think it'll do better ratings wise just because of the star power and the markets involved. But, short of that, like I don't really kind of buy into the whole good or bad. I know there's been a lot written about this. There's a particular, I think, disrespectful article I think I saw from, it was, I think, a New York publication or whatever, where they basically called the Rangers win last year irrelevant. And, so stuff like that, or whatever, I think does more to harm the game than having the big markets in. Like, it's two top payrolls in. But yeah, I mean, it's a good matchup. I think, though, the big thing is just going to be how good are the games, because there's going to be a lot of eyes on these early. Completely honest, that NLCS was probably the most garbage 6-game series I've ever watched. Like, the percentage of time that people were up, 5+ runs, it's like a 6-game set of, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, NLDS, the year before, where it's just complete one-way traffic. It just oscillated in the Mets way twice. So I think, if you're going to have a bunch of eyes on it, you're going to want the games to be close and not have, a bunch of 6-run third innings that basically kill all excitement for the next 2 hours. The baseball's boring crowd will be all up in arms that, with all the casuals who are probably going to put eyes on this series to start. So I think having some really competitive games is going to be big for that. That's going to be good for baseball, but I don't necessarily really believe in like any matchup specifically being like good or bad for a sport. It's just, it is.
Dan, what's your take?
I think to a certain extent you're right. I think the quality of the games ultimately will dictate like how good or for baseball the series will be. But I do think a matchup like the Dodgers and the Yankees can only be good. Like I think despite what I've heard from friends of mine who are fans of other teams that are not included in this, and how this is a nightmare scenario or the meteor scenario, like I think again, like this is like so many top players, so many like exciting players in one place, and so much history. I think it'll, yeah, I think it's, as you put it, Manfred's fever dream for a reason. Like I think it can only drum up excitement, and I think I think more eyeballs is good. I think and I think it will be a good series. So I'm excited.
So my thing, and two things I want to touch on here, and you both make excellent points, especially about the competitiveness of the games. And that group chat was dead the entire NLCS. Like, Collin had maybe 3 messages total into the group chat for an entire NLCS, and it was like, "I'm Team Meteor," and that was it. Like, it's just like, I was like, "Collin, would you like to contribute something else?" I'm not even gonna lie. Game 1, when we pulled ahead, I saw how Senga was pitching. And I was like, oh, this is going to be over pretty quick. Provided our pitching does their job. Like, and Yoshi, fair enough, did his job. I was like, this is going to be over pretty quick. And so I was just like, I'm sorry, was it Flaherty in game 1?
Flaherty, yeah.
Flaherty in game 1 was nails. And
shutout.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I fell asleep on the couch after the fourth inning. Literally fell asleep for like 30 minutes because I was like, I don't freaking care. Like, this game's out of hand, and we all know how bad this Mets bullpen is. Like, this Mets bullpen is bad. Okay, like, it's something that a lot of people weren't talking about. It's like, hey, you just set the NLCS record for walks. And I was like, yeah, it takes a bad pitcher to give up that many walks. They keep talking about the Dodgers plate discipline. I'm like, yeah, they're disciplined and all. Yeah, they made their ABs. These relievers did not make it hard on them. All right, like, hey, you were bad. And I was like, this game's over. It's one of those things where you just know, like, reliever can't find a spot. They're gonna have another pitching change. This game's gonna drag out for 3 hours while they like rotate through all their horrible bullpen arms. And sorry, taking a nap. So good point about the competitiveness of the games. One thing I really wanted to point out was, first of all, star power. Faces sell tickets, boys. Faces. Like Aaron Judge. It's a face that only a mother could love. But it's gonna sell tickets. The guy's great. Shohei Ohtani, the overseas market, Japan, where he's basically, Paul Bunyan, right? Like, sells tickets. And I think that's something that baseball has for the first time in what feels like a while. It's like, yeah, they're good guys. They're super classy. I don't know if you guys saw Judge was asked about Shohei, and he was like, he's the best player in the game. And I'm like, that's high praise coming from you, buddy. You're the best batter in the game. So they're super classy. They don't have that like mean streak like Harper does. Like, Harper's got a little bit of that edge to him. These two guys have no edge whatsoever. They're just completely just rounded off corners, and they're the faces. It's the two best players in baseball, and maybe this is kind of like a generation shift. Like, people watched the Bulls for MJ. There's people watch the Packers for Favre. Definitely Favre, but not Rodgers. Sorry, guys. They watch for Favre, right? Like, and this little town in Green Bay, got a huge worldwide fan base because their quarterback is freaking exciting as hell to watch, dude. That guy can sling it. Like, that's kind of what sells and like boosts a league's profile, right? And that's what you're getting here is like, you have Japanese, like, super respectful, once in a lifetime player, and then you have
everything.
like classic Yankees, best slugger in the league, hits every ball, like, is just awesome. You have that star power, and so you have that kind of colliding. And I think that's ultimately what's going to drive the sales for these games. Is a lot of people who don't really watch baseball, who think baseball is boring, probably haven't watched the game since they were a kid, might tune into a game or two. I keep hearing about people from Europe getting into baseball, which is pretty funny. Like, I'm from Spain, and this is my first time watching a baseball game. I'm like, what brought you here? And they're like, Shohei Ohtani. And I'm like, really? He's Japanese. Like, he ain't Spanish. But that's how big the game is getting, and that's how a game grows. So I think ultimately it's good for baseball. I think that's the call there. But you two make great points. I can't fall asleep on my couch during this World Series, or else everybody else is going to fall asleep on the couch. Okay. Well, let's move on to the opponents. Here we go. And I got of course, the John Sterling. The Yankees are in. The New York Yankees defeat the Cleveland Guardians to reach the franchise's first World Series in 15 years. They do so as a slight underdog, plus 105. Fellas, are the Yankees really the underdogs in this series? And Dan, let's start with you.
No, I think it's I kind of feel like a toss up going in. Like, I do, like, I think the Dodgers are going to win. Like as a homer pick, but I could see it going either way. Like the Yankees are stacked with, like, they have any team with Judge and Soto can break a game open. And the way Stanton's been swinging the bat, like, he's going to be dangerous. And yeah, I mean, they got Garrett Cole, who's probably the best starter in the series, and their bullpen, apart from how the end of the series went, was pretty good in the playoffs. I could see them giving us trouble, but I mean, the Dodgers are going to win, but yeah, I don't think. I don't gamble on sports, but I understand plus 105 is very close to toss up. So, yeah, I mean, that seems about fair.
Murph, I know the Meteor is the real underdog here, but
Meteor, yeah. You gotta have your long shot. But no, I mean, I think I looked it up right before we came in. The implied odds are around 54%. So I mean, sure, by definition they are an underdog, but like I think that a percentage for them to win the World Series is exactly even right now with Kamala Harris to win the presidency. Do you consider her an underdog? So I think it's just one of those things where I think you're splitting hairs in what's really a coin flip.
God damn it, Murph. You know what's funny? We were just talking about this yesterday. I was like, kind of walking down the street, and I don't want to get too political, but I was like, I gotta feel like Donnie's gonna get his ass handed to him. Like, it's just like it's not gonna go like they think. And I honestly, I promise, last 5 seconds about politics. It's weird how Donnie feels like it's like he's responding to stuff now. Like he's like reactive and kind of like the wheels of the bus are falling off now. As opposed to like where he would say like crazy stuff with a straight face and like people would just kind of buy into it. Now it's just like, dude, what is he saying? Like it really is like it kind of isn't like, oh my god, he said this, that's terrible. It's now turning into like, what's he saying? Like what's wrong with this guy? Like it's kind of more of that. So yeah, I mean, but like Unhinged can be fun. This is not fun. This is just like, what are you saying? Like, dude, how are you gonna run a country? You can't even put a sentence together. Sorry, we'll come off the politics. 100%. I think it's a super close series. I'm not gonna say who I think is gonna win because I'm terrified, and it's one of those things where until the final out is made, like I will not unclench. You know what I mean? Like it's just I'm gonna be tense the whole time. I probably need to like take a bunch of edibles for the first time in like 10 years. But yeah, that's where we're at with it. All right,
the best two teams in baseball.
Yeah, and we're not gonna stop talking about this. This is more World Series content. So obviously there's a ton to work with here. All right, but rank your World Series storylines, right? Like there's so many different storylines. Everybody wants to be like, oh, Tony versus Judge, like New York versus LA. I think West Coast, East Coast kind of died with Biggie, no offense. But that's kind of like, it's not really a thing as much anymore. There's not that kind of regionalism because, we have like our horses in the race. But what are kind of like, what are the storylines that you guys want to see? You don't have to do 3. Just give me like a couple.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting you mentioned, the whole West Coast, East Coast thing, because like I assume, from the Yankees perspective, that's true. They've kind of beaten the brakes out of the Dodgers in the World Series historically. I think they're 8-3 all time versus the Dodgers in the World Series. But I mean, I think the low-hanging fruit is just going to be the MVP off that sits at the top of both these two teams' lineups. Judge, Stanton, Soto versus, Ohtani, Mookie, and, Freeman. How healthy is Freeman going to look? Not the sharpest, moving around, although he was still swinging the bat very well in the Mets series. I think the big thing for the Yankees is their starting pitching's got to show out. That was what absolutely doomed the Mets in their series. The Dodgers got up to massive leads super early. The Yankees, this is their one spot where they have a clear advantage. The Dodgers lineup is longer. The Dodgers bullpen's better. This is where they have a chance to kind of, impose, I guess, themselves a little bit on the series. And they're going to need, Garrett Cole and those guys to come through. And then I put up a third one that I think is very interesting because one of the big weaknesses of the Yankees pen, they do not have a lot of lefty options. And we saw how great the Padres used Tanner Scott to nullify Ohtani in the NLDS. Is that what we're going to see out of Tim Hill in this series? Because I think he's going to be the crucial guy. Is this going to be a situation where are they going to kind of copy what Lovello did versus the Phillies, where he basically just said, I'm not going to put my best lefty against, Schwarber and Harper. I'm actually going to send it at the bottom of the lineup and then have you sub out your whole bench, put in all your righties, and then have my right-handed relievers come in and just deal with them down the stretch. So it really, I guess, comes down to, Tim Hill, does he feel that he can get Ohtani and Freeman out is the biggest thing. And I guess, what are the leverage situations that they're coming up with? Because the Dodgers is definitely a team where you can get them to blow their bench early, potentially, get Muncy out there, and kind of get all those right-handed bats in. So then when you're trotting out the rest of those guys, like Conley, Weaver and such, they're not having to face as many lefties. Obviously, you're still facing Ohtani and Freeman. Those guys aren't getting subbed out no matter what. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they choose to use Tim Hill. And if they go even deeper, they have spacing on the other lefty that they have in that pen. But, they've not used him in high leverage situations this year. Are they going to try and maybe roll him out versus Ohtani once or twice to see kind of what happens there. It's going to be very interesting to see kind of how they handle that, because it is a very, very right-handed bullpen for the Yankees, especially for the leverage spot.
Piercing analysis from Murphman. We really got it nicely done, Collin. Dan, what do you got?
Well, I think the biggest storyline that Collin left out, and the biggest advantage that the Dodgers have that Collin left out, is the managers. I think Doc Roberts, the matchup between Doc Roberts and Aaron Boone is going to become significant, especially in a series like this where the Dodgers rely so heavily on their bullpen, and they like there will be a lot of chess moves going on, and I think the Dodgers have better pieces, and I think the over a decade worth of playoff experience that Roberts has accumulated with the team has given him I think he's not making the same mistakes that he was making in those early years. Like, I think he is most of the moves that he was doing in these last two series, like, I was right there with him, and I was they made a lot of sense, and I think I don't think Boone can match that, and I think that'll come up big in some scenarios late game. I did like seeing the connection that they both have. Boone hitting the big home run in 2003 for the Yankees, and Roberts getting the steal in 2004 for the Red Sox, which were they were both midseason acquisitions, but they came up big in the playoffs. But I think that'll be a big one ultimately. But yeah, it's hard to get away from the stars. Like, the stars are so bright in this series. I think, despite it being talked about, Shohei and Ohtani and Betts and Soto and all these superstars will have to come into play. But yeah, I think like Collin said, I think the Dodgers lineup is a lot longer. I think we can get a lot more stuff out of a guy like Tommy Edman, who was another deadline acquisition, but we haven't had him by the end of the series as the cleanup hitter. I think he will continue to come up with big hits. I think Kike will continue to come up with big hits, and yeah, it should be good.
One thing I'd also like to throw out there is the true winner of this series is Taylor Trammell. I always enjoy when we have these situations. Back with when it was Giants Rangers, it was, I think, Benji Molina. But always gotta love it when there's a player out there that's getting a ring, no matter who wins. So shout out to you, Taylor Trammell. You're a winner. You're gonna be a World Series champion.
It's 7 at-bats this year. We're also trying to go for the 5th straight year that a Will Smith wins the World Series, because Will Smith won in 2020, and then Will Smith, the pitcher, who Will Smith, the batter, hit a big home run off of in the 2020 playoffs, won in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. So we gotta keep the Will Smith streak going.
This is a crazy stat. I didn't even realize Will Smith, the pitcher, had moved teams and stuff. Funny thing. Just aside, college loyalties. Booney is a good old SC boy, and Doc is a UCLA guy. So we've got that as well. One interesting thing, Jazz Chisholm Jr. is swinging an absolute sausage right now. This guy is batting like 155. Like, he is awful. You want to talk about deadline acquisitions that are not panning out right now?
You're saying that those first couple of games where he hit a bunch of home runs was just a flash in the pan? And
it's crazy. It's almost like that's the case, because holy mackerel, this guy. He had a 449 OPS in the ALCS, and not much better 521 OPS in the ALDS against the Royals. And then the other thing to watch out for, which I know Yankees fans are definitely kind of clenching about, is the two plans. The base running errors. The Yankees have had some pretty horrible base running. Not like, if you got a rally going against the Dodgers, like, you got to strike while the iron's hot, because if the bullpen comes in, they can cool it down real quick. There's a team that demonstrated that they could get out of jams. And if you're just giving up free runs, or you're going to give up free outs, like, not a good situation to be in. So I know Jeter mentioned it on the post-game show for the NLCS. He's like, you got to fix the base running if you won't have any chance of winning a World Series. And I was like, yeah, you do. Like, this is pretty embarrassing.
I also enjoyed them using Anthony Rizzo as a defensive sub in Game 4, and he committed 2 errors. I think only one was charged, though, but and it's like instantly just all the levers pulling just aren't working out there. Uh, so that was kind of a funny one. And then the other thing I enjoy, especially with this Yankees lineup, is just thinking of all those old school meatheads or whatever, looking at that Yankees lineup, and you have, Judge, Soto, Stanton, who's batting cleanup? Good old Jazz. And that little sausage he's swinging.
Oh man.
It is something that we've talked about all year. Like that, like the top of that lineup is crazy, but it drops off quick. And if Stanton hadn't woken up in the playoffs, that would be even more rough. But yeah, I mean, Stanton changes things for sure. That having three batters going like that makes a difference.
For both of you fellas, if Stanton, let's say bats like a Collin, you're on a podcast. If Stanton bats like above a 1,000 OPS for the World Series and for the playoffs, is his contract worth it? Are you like okay with it? Because I mean, guys, we're talking about an all-time, like Russell Westbrook hasn't had a contract this atrocious. Like it's pretty bad. Like it goes on forever. And the worst part is he opted in. He was like, oh yeah, no, definitely. Like what? I'm not gonna leave money on the table. Like, do the Yankee fans forgive his contract, or will they forget next year when it comes up again and they realize just hand him like 35 million?
I think those are two different questions there. I would say, flags fly forever. And so it would be worth it, especially if he continues this hot streak. But if you don't think people are going to be calling in to New York radio, telling him that he needs to be DFA'd after he goes like batting 067 for 2 weeks, then, you're out of your mind.
I mean, if you DFA him, you still have to pay him. So,
I don't think they even care about that. It's just a visceral anger.
oh, Stanton catching strays. All right. We can finally move on. Next up, fellas, it's almost NBA season. Actually tips off tomorrow, I believe, on the 24th. Is it tomorrow or is it
tonight?
Tonight? Okay.
Yeah.
But the Clippers will have their first game at their new home in Inglewood, California, at the Intuit Dome. And Kawhi is out indefinitely, but somehow found time to star in a NBA tip-off commercial, which is like super awkward. This guy's not gonna play. Guys, I wanna, as Collin, you were here when Kawhi signed with the Clippers. Like you were in LA and you saw like the dooming that I was doing that day, screaming at the TV and all that. Will the Clippers ever win one? Because like Steve Ballmer is trying everything he can. Like, are they ever going to win one, or are they just going to stay the Clippers forever?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really believe in like things like kind of just being in perpetuity like this. I don't think there's any like signs that Ballmer has been a bad owner like across the board. I think ownership is what leads to like a lot of the big issues. To go into football, William Ford was running the Lions forever, and they were god awful. He passes it on to Sheila, and she's running a very great ship, and the Lions instantly have become competitive. Meanwhile, the Browns similarly were snake bitten. They sold to Jimmy Haslam. He's miserable. And they had a promising core, and they're spoiling it right now. So
I was like, where are you going with this Cleveland thing? Like,
yeah. Well, it's more like, the franchises that continue to suck, they continue to suck because they keep getting worse, like bad ownership. Ownership is like the rot that like kind of persists through all this. I don't think there's any proof that exists with Ballmer. I think getting their own stadium is a huge thing for them to get out of the Lakers' shadow, which they're perpetually going to be in if they stayed at, the crypto.com arena. But so I think it was good for them to do that. Also, yes, things haven't really panned out for them, but every team in the league, would have taken Kawhi. It's not like even his injuries were ever like Clippers being snake bitten or anything. Like he had the degenerative knee condition in San Antonio. He was on a minutes restriction in the playoffs when he won the title in Toronto. This is really just the aging natural curve of that. They've just been a little bit unlucky with this. Even this LA tip-off ad, it's not even the worst, Clippers ad that's come out. I would say Paul George's no OT tonight when he was like 0 for 36 on game winners was probably the worst of the, Clippers ads that we've seen. So this is just a blip in the radar for a franchise that's had a lot of blips.
Dan, what do you think? Like, as an LA sports fan, Dan, you bring a different perspective. Like, are the Clippers always just doomed to always be the Clippers?
Well, in certain respects, yes. Like, I think they will always be in the Lakers' shadow in LA unless like that that hierarchy will take like decades of different results to really change, because that is established. Just like the Angels and the Dodgers, like there is a clear hierarchy in the city. I think saying that they'll never win is stretching it a bit far. I think if the Clippers do the right things and hire the right witch doctors to sacrifice the right assortment of animals in the right states, I think they can finally break that curse and actually make something happen. Maybe even make the finals once.
What I'm thinking is like, is that kind of like little brother status kind of scaring away top end competitive free agents? Does it kind of put a ceiling on like how well the players can perform? Like, is it really like how hard are you going to play? And that kind of leads to my next point in our next slide.
I mean, they've had CP3, Blake Griffin, Kawhi, Paul George. Like, they've gotten players to force their way there. They've gotten max guys to stick around. It's LA. LA sells itself. I mean, the Nets are second rate in New York, and they're incompetent, and they're still able to get like max guys. NBA players want to live in LA, and the Lakers can't sign literally everybody. So the Clippers are always going to have, pretty good options there.
I like that.
Yeah,
that's a good rebuttal.
Yeah, I agree with Collin on this. Like, I think they get players, like, and they have been, but it's the Clippers. It doesn't end up mattering.
They are the Clippers. Don't forget. Like remember they got them both, and then like Kawhi never played PG, and there was like rumbling in the locker room about Pat Bev being unhappy, and like it's like a PG and Kawhi clicking there, and it's just like it falls apart like it's like the Jets. They're like the New York Jets. It's like, guys, what the hell are we doing here? Speaking of what the hell are we doing here, we're gonna build a wall, boys. This is the wall pictured here. So the Intuit Dome is going to feature a special section for up to 4,500 fans. 4,500 fans who are not allowed to scalp their tickets, who are not allowed to give the tickets to any opposing fans. So the Clippers are tipping off at the new Intuit Dome in Inglewood, featuring the wall, a gate-kept section for up to 4,500 Chuck Mark certified fans. Is this thing actually going to be a thing? Okay, does anyone want to go to the Intuit Dome? Do you guys? Let's play buy or sell. Are you buying or selling on this wall? Are we gonna not hear about this again in 2 years, or is this actually gonna be a thing?
I think it very well could end up being a short-term thing. But I think it'll be a thing this year. Like, I think with the hype of the new stadium, and I think in the short term, I would buy it, but I would definitely be looking to sell within a year or two, personally. It's a cool concept. I like the idea, but I think in practice, especially in a city like LA where there's so many other options, I think having a section that's that exclusive, especially to a team like the Clippers that ultimately has never even made the finals, is ambitious, and I think a bit too ambitious for their positioning, like within the culture of the city.
I'm similar thoughts to this with Daniel. I think like it just almost feels like a college vacation, attempt here from Ballmer. I think it's a very interesting try. I just don't think the NBA fandom is really going to work with this. I just don't see it working out long term. I do think, it's a new shiny thing. So sure, like there's going to be some bump early, but I just can't imagine this is going to be a long-term plan. And I could just see this end up being like pretty thinned out as people don't consistently show up to 41 home games is quite a bit like throughout the year. So you're kind of asking a big buy-in for people. And yeah, I don't think NBA fandom is college fandom. I think it's a good attempt to try and rowdy up a stadium, but ultimately I can't see it working.
So I went through the process of becoming Chuck Mark certified, at least to an extent.
Okay.
It got to a point where they're asking questions about like, when is Chuck the Condor's birthday? And I'm like, these are easily Googleable. So, okay. And then I got to the bottom. They're like, send us a picture of you wearing Clippers gear. And I was like, I don't think you can find 4,500 people in the state who are going to send a photo of them wearing Clippers gear to sit in the section whose only major benefit is that you get hot dogs for $5. Like I don't really buy on this. It's a tough sell, and I'm sorry, Chuck. You're a great mascot, Chuck the Condor. I think you're you represent a new dawn of the Clipper franchise. This is like, I believe this is post Sterling. This is like one of the first Ballmer moves, right? This is like 2016. So, yeah, that's great. But 4,500 people are gonna take a photo and submit it wearing Clipper gear. Like, like I know people who won't like wear Clipper gear on Instagram, right? Like, that's.
I remember back in high school, there was like the one guy who was a Clippers fan, and like that was his thing. Like literally everyone else was Lakers fans.
We had a coworker who was a Clipper fan, and we couldn't believe it. We were just like, "What's wrong with this guy?" Like,
oh, well.
it was so weird. It's just like, dude, why the Clippers? Like, you're a basketball fan. Why would you do this to yourself? But
speaking of the Clippers, like, lack of brand reach, I had no idea who the Chuck in question was, and when you put the slide up first, I thought it was a typo.
Don't worry, don't worry. I had no idea either until I did some digging. I found out yesterday who Chuck the Condor was.
I love a good condor. It's a cool animal to have the mascot. Had no idea. I don't think I've seen a picture.
Last thing about this place, though, I heard there's 1,400 toilets in there. Like 1,400 toilets.
That's nice.
That is like a lot. Capacity is 18,000. 1,400 toilets.
Oh, I'm sure it's going to be a great stadium. Like
Ballmer's like, and I love how that they designed it. And I believe one of the CFO of the stadium or something like that
arena
said basically, if you're out of your seat walking around the concourse, we failed. Like, we're going to keep you in the seats and cheering. And I was like, I love that. I love that idea. Good luck getting that to happen with your team. But I mean, it looks amazing. And like, they're going to have fans from Manhattan Beach. Like, it's all on the west side. So all the like frou-frou neighborhoods like MB, Santa Monica, like, where I live, out on the west in Culver City, like, these people are going to be super like jazzed about going to the stadium for the first time. And so maybe this thing can work, guys. I don't know.
I just don't think the team is good enough at this point in time to really keep that excitement going. Like, I think
James Harden, though, how could they not be good?
They really kind of needed to have a better, like, I think Ballmer would have wished that this would be a top 3 seed team coming into debuting a new stadium, not a team that's, Harden's still good, but he's really not an 82-game player anymore. Kawhi's out of the lineup. It's just tough. I think they're going to be up and down all season. I think it's going to lead to frustration. I think it's going to be tough to keep that momentum going from a Clippers point of view. And the West is tough. The West is very tough this year.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind watching some other teams play at the Intuit Dome. So, the Clippers will still be the Clippers. You can always get those tickets to watch other teams come to town and beat up on the Clippers. So I'll certainly try to make the trek out there. Not that far from my house. Literally like 20 minutes from my house if I just go down the 405. So
probably won't be making too many treks out there.
I don't blame you, Collin. I don't blame you. But
I'll
you're
see it
next
from the
to the
outside
Premier
whenever I'm next in town.
Yeah.
All right. From week basketball to week football. Okay, guys, this is not the best week 8 schedule or not the best NFL schedule I've seen. Just showing off some of these matchups. We got the 1-6 Pats with their divisional rival, the 2-5 Jets. You guys got a snoozer. The Packers are the 5-2 Packers are up against the 2-5 Jags, trying to keep Doug Peterson's job alive. This is a pretty grim schedule. So, are there any matchups that stand out to you guys this week in the NFL?
I mean, I think the big one that comes out is the battle of the 2 rookie quarterbacks. You got Jane Daniels versus Caleb Williams, and probably the 2 most surprising teams in the NFC this year facing off. I mean, I think that's the clear-cut marquee matchup of this weekend. Other 2, I think there are 2 other interesting ones. Eagles-Bengals, I think Bengals are starting to come around a little bit. Eagles have been up and down. I think that's going to be a very fun game where the fan base of whoever loses that is going to kind of go into a little bit of a freak-out mode. And speaking of that, Cowboys-Niners really starting to feel like, those are probably, we said Commanders-Bears were the 2 most, surprising teams in the NFC. These are the 2 most disappointing teams in the NFC. I think, if you're the Niners, you lose this one. Now you've lost the head-to-head with the Cowboys for a potential playoff spot. You don't have the head-to-head with the Vikings already. Things are starting to look a little rough when you're trying to talk about who those 3 wildcard teams are going to be. Cowboys, similar. You're going to be clear-cut third in your division at the end of this. You've lost the head-to-head to the Niners. And, I mean, Jerry Jones is already out ranting on, news radio about the quarterback and the hosts not treating them fairly and all sorts of things. Like that Mike McCarthy hot seat is going to be boiling if they don't get one this week. This is really, the Niners are banged up. The Cowboys are going to be anything this year. You'd think they got to make a move, at some, like this week.
But am I the only one who feels like that Niners Dallas matchup is like not that competitive? Like the Niners clearly, like Debo was out, like he's probably coming back this week. That team is
Ayuk's
still
out for the year.
I'm sorry?
Ayuk's out.
Ayuk's out for the year, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, the Cowboys have been stinking it up, right? Like this is not a average bad Cowboys team. This is a specially bad Cowboys team. Like it's, as an Eagles fan who revels in this kind of stuff, if my team wasn't so damn mediocre ourselves, I would be reveling in this. But I just don't see that as a competitive matchup. I'm just like, San Francisco's taking that easy.
I mean, they're banged up. They just blew that game to the Cardinals, which was really bad. They had a pretty large lead in the fourth quarter. This isn't the Niners of like the previous years. Like this is a banged up team that's just trying to get by. And
banged up team that was already playing pretty mediocre themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Purdy had himself a pretty rough one last week against the Chiefs, but I think he bounces back. I think they end up dog walking the Cowboys, but that might be the Eagle fan speaking. So
I also had a couple games scheduled on my list here.
What do you got?
Well, first off, I'm the first one that I highlighted was also Bears Commies, but only if Jane Daniels plays, which I'm very concerned about. Having Jane Daniels as my starting quarterback in both my fantasy leagues, I'm very focused on that. But if he plays, that'll be a really fun game. I think Falcons Bucks will be fun. I think a classic NFC South rock fight is always fun to tune into. They're both 4-3. They're both sort of banged up, but yeah. I mean,
Monday was tough with Godwin and Evans going down.
Yeah. But Baker Mayfield keeps it interesting, and the Falcons sort of play down or up to most of their opponents. So I think it'll be a fun game. And I also had the new look Bills and the Seahawks playing each other. Both are above 500. Both are pretty solid teams. And I want to see more of how that the Amari Cooper offense looks. Like I think it'll really open up, and yeah, I'll probably catch a good chunk of that one.
All right, well, you guys are disproving me. I criticize the schedule, but you guys have some good picks in there. As a Caleb Williams quarterback drafter in both of my leagues, I am in deep trouble. I think fantasy football is overrated and a dumb sport, and it's not a sport, and I think it's a stupid game. I'm just kidding. Caleb's kind of turning a corner. It's kind of cool to see, but yeah, those are some great matchups actually, and so. Way to save the NFL there, guys. Way to stump for the Shield.
They needed the help.
Yeah, back the Shield, baby.
Good God. All right. We're running short on time, but like, okay, let's do it real quick. Who are your like locks for who's gonna get a win this week? Let's just call it who's gonna get a win this week. I call it hammer time. Just name one team that's for sure gonna win this week. Could be anywhere.
I like the Broncos beating a clearly given up Panthers team. I just heard a report that Andy Dalton was apparently in a car accident with his family. Things are just not. It seems like everyone's fine, so It's not a really big thing. But it's just nothing is going right for Carolina. Broncos are actually a little feisty right now, and the Panthers look like they've just quit, which is embarrassing to say in October. But they look like they're just done playing football.
It's not even cold yet, guys.
Yeah.
And Jaden Daniels went out in the first quarter, and then the Commies still beat him 40-7. It was
Hey, Mariota was out doing
What about you, Dan? Who's your hammer at?
Arsenal at home against Liverpool. They play up. They in the big games they show up. I have full confidence in my guys.
That's your lock?
100%.
You okay? Well, Collin did his homework. Moving on. All right, guys, here we go. So it's time for the Stadium Experience Awards. I like to think that between the three of us, we have some pretty significant experience built up going to sporting events around the U.S. and around the world. So we feel at least somewhat comfortable giving out awards for the best stadium experiences we've been a part of. we're just going to keep it short and sweet. Four categories. And of course, we'll start with what's most important to Euno, which is the food. Okay. So I want, why don't we all go? So go ahead, Murph. Why don't we start with Murph? Best stadium food you've ever had?
I actually don't really eat at stadiums very much. I'm more on a liquid diet,
Jesus
typically.
Christ.
If we're being completely honest.
Which one had the coldest beer? You know?
Coldest beer? I'll tell you, it wasn't Levi's. That place is a dump. No, actually, I will say, Dodger Stadium, wherever, has a lot of those like little quick kiosks. You could actually get beer pretty quickly there. I think they're one of the better run stadiums in that regard. They just have a ton of those like little, just almost fridges. You can just kind of grab and go, and get straight out. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say there's anything super special. It's kind of just like a bodega thing where you just grab and just like kind of walk off. But yeah, I don't really eat at stadiums. It's like very expensive, and so I just intentionally try to avoid it.
Con. Jesus. All right, Dan. Best stadium food.
Best stadium food. I always go back to Camden Yards. Whenever this comes up, the seafood there. I had actually pulled up the picture real quick. I had this really great sandwich with like a full crab that was just fried, and it was really good. Yeah, my mom still talks about it.
If you want to send it to me, I can put that picture up on the slide right now.
Okay, let's see.
Let's take a look at this crab thing. Watch me reveal all my text messages too. This is actually, it's not gonna, right? I don't know how to have this photo as well, but it does look good.
The photos, the photos.
I can see it. I don't know if it's photogenic. I'm gonna have to go through all that trouble.
It was good. It was delicious. Yeah.
It looks delicious. So this is a fried crab sandwich.
Yeah.
Oh,
I assume Maryland blue crab. Yeah.
Well, this was looking at the timestamp here. It was August 15th, 2015 when I had this, so I don't remember the details, but I remember that it was a crab in a sandwich, and it was good.
That sounds pretty good. So I didn't do my homework either. I chose an anti-award for the worst stadium food, definitely. And it's Dodger Stadium. I'm sorry. Like, I've been there so many times. Every time I go, like, and Collin knows this about me, I have no qualms about shelling out for stadium food.
No.
None whatsoever. And it is consistently disappointing. And I don't care what people say about the Dodger dog. It is not good. It doesn't taste good. I was eating a hot dog at Costco the other day, and I was like, if this was the Dodger dog, I would buy more of them at the same price that they charge at Dodger Stadium right now. And instead, it's a Costco dog for $1.50. And, you know, the Costco Glizzy it's an American institution, all right? Like, we're not going to, you know, but for as much love as the Dodger dog gets, oh, God. Right? Like, come on, guys.
All the love the Dodger dog gets is from when they were Farmer John. Like, they weren't great then either, but they were solid. Now they went away from Farmer John, and it's just not the same.
I don't know what the hell they're selling back there, but it's just not good. And then like the nachos and the nacho cheese and the fries, like, the garlic fries are okay.
The nachos?
I mean, the nachos suck. Like, yeah, what do you want me to say? Like,
I mean, some of the fancy places, you know, that they use jalapenos.
But the Dodgers, they put pickles on them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've never been impressed by Dodger Stadium food, and I've had it like top to bottom. Dugout Club, even the prime rib at the Dugout Club's not that good. Like, and we're talking about like $600 tickets on an afternoon game against the Rockies or something, you know, like, and you know that part's not good. The stadium suite level food is not good. Like, they have this mac and cheese that's like too like grainy, and like I don't like that texture on the mac and cheese that they have. It's like, it's just the food, and you guys know I'm a big food guy. Has never been good at Dodger Stadium, so that's my anti-award. Like, screw the Dodger Stadium food. Get better, okay? Leave your restaurants. Like, I know your name. I know who runs your operation. Like, please fix, okay? I really used all my time just to do that. Just want to make that clear. All right, guys. Next category, crowd. Which stadium has the best crowd?
The one I liked the best, and this was just top of mind because I was at the Georgia-Texas game the other day. It's my first time at DK Royal Stadium. And I'll just say, it honestly does not really hold a candle to Camp Randall out in Madison, University of Wisconsin. That place was rocking. And the jump around thing also to start at the end of the third quarter. It's iconic. It's a great vibe. It's a great experience. That one's definitely probably my favorite. If we're sticking to baseball only, I will say Citizens Bank Park, when like the Phillies really get into it. Like that's a very good baseball crowd. That's definitely my favorite. Yeah, baseball stadium I've been to. As far as if you're only doing crowd, nothing else. Like everything that they do, especially with the lights and everything, it's a great production. The fans are super into it. They're super loud. Those would probably be, if I'm picking football, picking baseball, those would be my top two.
Yeah, I think in the U.S., if you go by crowd, you have to, like, objectively, it has to be one of the college stadiums, just because it's like it's another thing. It's the closest thing to European soccer. Like the vibe is just on another level, and by far the stadium that I've been to the most is USC. So I'd have to go for that one in terms of personal experience, at least in the U.S. For baseball, yeah, I mean, Citizens Bank Park has such a great reputation in terms of I don't know about, like, yeah, in terms of the crowd engagement. But I actually kind of like I enjoyed sort of the vibe in this last series actually at Citi Field. Like I liked hearing the fans singing. I've never been to a game there, but I would like to give them some respect for that.
Damn, you stole both of mine. No, because like Citi Field, when I saw that they were singing the Temptations, and I was like, that's lit. So you guys know I'm like a big pro wrestling fan. And when the crowd gets into it, it kind of makes the whole thing. Like when they start singing theme music and all that stuff, like that's when it gets really good. Like, and I wish I could show you guys some clips, but like WWE's got this down to a science. They've got like the entire crowd like singing opening themes for like their favorite guys, and it's like it when they say electric, that's what they mean. Like that feeling is electric. And Citi Field, I was like, that crowd is electric. Like oh my gosh. Like I kept thinking, like, remember when we were like, oh, are they the best fans in baseball? Like they're up there. How many stupid Grimace costumes did you see? And it was like, my gosh, they're crazy.
So many OMG signs too.
Yeah,
they got into all their little.
They had their own like homemade OMG signs that look exactly like the ones that they have like in the dugout. And then I go to Dodger Stadium, everybody's all buttoned up and stuff. Like, and of course the sections I'm sitting in too, it's just like, are you guys all rich and bored? Like, God, this sucks. So yeah, it's I see Citi Field, I'm really jealous of that one. Obviously, for football, college football, our alma mater, God, when it's the craziest is when it's so hot, because college football tends to coincide with like cooler weather for most people. For us, it's like 100 degrees. The Santa Ana winds are blowing into that little bowl and like just pissing on our souls, and it is so hot, and I am so drunk most of the time when I'm there, and like, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it, and I always lose my voice when I go, and it's one of the best experiences I've had in my life. But like my experience with college football stadiums is fairly limited, so.
I will say, my favorite experience of the Coliseum, we were at that one game, I think you and I together. The Trojans took a nice little 7-3 lead, and the fans started chanting overrated at Oregon. And then Oregon proceeded to drop 50 points. And it was a blowout.
All right. At least you didn't bring up the Wazoo game.
Well, that was just ugly.
That was a painful game.
7 pick 6 to win it.
I was like, oh, we have a shot, and then against Oregon, I was like, oh, we have a shot. Okay, we don't have a shot. Moving on. Okay, this is kind of like a random, whatever goes here section, but the vibe. Which stadium has the best vibes? And I'm gonna go first because I might steal Collins. Lambeau Field. Walking there,
not what I was gonna go actually, but
that place is a cathedral to football. It feels like a holy place. Yeah, and you guys are both Green Bay Packer fans, so and you guys know me, I'm an Eagles fan. I hate you guys, and I hate your guts. But when you go to that city, and it's probably because sure, I could say this. It's probably because the city of Green Bay is like a shithole. Like it really just feels really like everything just feels dingy. Everything like Wisconsin, the entire state is drunk all the time, drinking to forget that they live in Wisconsin. And you go to Lambeau Field, and it's like finding a golden toilet in like a totally dilapidated house. You know, it's just like everything else around it like sucks. It just looks dark and depressing and snowy and like people are drinking inside. But then you go to Lambeau and it's like, oh, like you can hear the chorus like while you're walking towards it. It is so clean. The inside is like it's beautiful. It's huge and it just feels like, man, if you like football, you need to come here at least once. You know, like this is like, it's a vibe. Okay, like that vibe to me, it was like what I was thinking of when I was thinking of this category. I was like, I don't know any other place that makes me feel that way. I imagine like Cooperstown might do that for some people. For me, I know Canton, Ohio, but it's like no, it should be in Green Bay. Like it's that vibe is just like this city worships football, doesn't give a flying F about anything else. Like anything else. All right. Like so it was one of the coolest experiences. We went there for Murph's bachelor party. That and I couldn't even go to the game. I was just taking in the stadium, and I just like felt like this is a cathedral to gridiron football. Just a great feeling. So just want to throw that out there. You guys.
Going off of what you said, I had my most similar experience to that was going to catch a game at Wrigley. Like Wrigley, the oldest baseball stadium still being used is in the majors is similar to that. Like it felt unlike any other stadium that I've watched a game at. It feels like you can feel the history. You can feel like I don't know. I had the hat. I had the Wrigley Field hat last week up in my little background here, but I've been switching them out every week. But yeah, it just has an entirely different vibe, and it feels like you can feel the 120 years of history. I don't remember exactly what year they opened, but it feels similar to what you were saying with Green Bay. No other stadium has made me feel that connected to like the just enormity of the history of baseball than catching a game in there. And it was a fun game. The first one that I went to as well. It was Dodgers Cubs. Zach Greinke. Like I think we went to extra innings. Anyways, that added to the experience. But yeah, I'm excited to catch more games there in the new season.
I mean, but the north side of Chicago is not a shithole like Green Bay, you know. So
you guys are making me feel a little rough here because I went a totally different tack with this question. I stuck with baseball though, but
we're going past this beers again. Like,
yeah. No, actually, I picked Coors.
Nice. I do like Coors.
Cool.
What's it called? You know, everyone gives the Rockies ownership a lot of stick sometimes, but they create a great fun environment. Like their game day experience is top notch, especially middle of summer. Yes, at times it feels like you're kind of at a brewery that happens to have a baseball game going on behind it. Especially their whole right field, which I'm pretty sure is just an open bar that people just flood. But no, you're up in the mountains. The views are great. The temperature is almost always great. You know, and there's just got such a lively kind of bumping area around it. And I think the impressive part to me is that the Rockies are normally pretty bad. So like the fact that they're able to create like a vibe with the team that, you know, they've never even won the division, I think is like quite impressive. Like you're talking about every like other, you know, teams. We were talking about the Clippers even trying to carve out a new identity for themselves. They haven't had a lot of historical success. I mean, you guys mentioned two of the most like oldest and historic like franchises. Like here are the Rockies, like a 90s expansion team, and they've created like a great like experience, you know, proving that like you don't necessarily need to have 80 years to kind of get something going if you kind of set out and kind of target the right, you know, kind of vibe, I guess, for it. And there's a reason why like Rockies games are very well attended, even when they are putting up 80 lost seasons, 90 lost seasons, you know, and it's just because the game day, you know, experience at the stadium is just pretty great out in Denver.
Dude. Yeah, of course it's the stadium named after beer, Collin. And of course you mentioned the open bar.
Well, a lot of the stadiums are named after beers. That's, you know, there's Busch,
really?
Miller.
Great American Ballpark?
That's probably a lager somewhere.
No, I love the direction you went in with it, Collin. That's like I've always wanted to go. And like when we were closing out the season, like was I texting you guys and I was like, hey guys, actually thinking about doing this. So because I thought Shohei might go for the 55-55 or the 60-60. So I was like, should I try to go? Yeah, I have to make it out there. And you know, honorable mention to Dodgers top deck, where you can kind of see the entire downtown LA skyline if you just turn around. And if you look forward, it's the San Gabriel Mountains. You know, like I highly recommend like if you want just like a chill experience for pretty cheap, like Top Deck's pretty affordable still.
I always said Top Deck. I love
dude,
Top Deck.
Great spot, you know. And it's just like, just go on like a day after it rained or something, because then you get really like, you know, it clears out all the like the smog and the soot and whatever, and you can just see like clear lights for the skyline. The Sangria Mountains look like they were carved, like painted there. You know, it looks amazing. So shout out to Dodger Stadium, obviously, but yeah, I've always wanted to go to the Rockies stadium. Last one, accessibility. So this is like kind of the actual stadium experience, right? It's just like, how do you get there? How do you get out? Can you use a bathroom? Like, what is it like? Accessible? What's the overall convenience factor of going to the park, and what's the experience like? And Dan, what's like the most accessible ballpark for you?
Man, I don't know. This one was of the ones that were up here, the toughest sort of to understand the question for me. I don't know. I like a stadium that has public transit right there, which I don't know, like Yankee Stadium comes to mind, Wrigley, the White Sox Stadium here again, the rate. I mean, it's right by
That's
the
not
Metro
what
stop.
I've heard it called, but
Guaranteed rate field is right by the Metro stop, so it's convenient. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like, yeah, public transport, which Dodger Stadium, as much as I love it, is always a struggle. Like I find I know my parking spot and I walk like 30 minutes to get to the stadium. But yeah, it's not ideal.
yeah, I more just was going to go negative on this one and just kind of bash California stadiums in general. Dodger Stadium, obviously, disaster. I think it's well documented. You know, just kind of the big issues there. The people are trying to shut down the gondola now because NIMBYs are going to NIMBY. And, you know, it's just nothing's getting good coming out of there. But Dodger Stadium's not the only bad stadium in California, because Qualcomm was also an abject disaster. Anyone who's ever went to a Chargers game back in the day there remembers like spending 3 hours gridlocked, stuck in there because they have like 2 exits from the parking lot. Thankfully, only San Diego State plays there, and no one watches them. And the other one I'd like to throw out is Levi's, the Niners Stadium, which if you actually are in San Francisco, you can take 3 different metro companies to get to the public transit to the stadium. You can take the BART to the Caltrain to the VTA, and that will drop you off right at the stadium. Totally perfect. It makes a ton of sense. You're also nowhere near San Francisco.
The Santa Clara 49ers.
Yeah. 3 different company metros that you have to use to get from San Francisco to the San Francisco 49ers Stadium. If that sounds insane, that's California stadium logic, apparently. So, yeah.
Qualcomm, dude. Like, Dan, have you been to like a Chargers game or like Holiday Bowl?
No.
I remember I went to a USC Holiday Bowl game. I just remember being like, who the F plays at this effing stadium? Why are the Chargers so popular in this city? Oh my gosh. And it looks like a freaking apocalypse hit it already. Like, you know, and it's got like the gnarly looking freeway overpasses and stuff. And I was like, I get why the Chargers left. All right. Like, I understand. But like, I mean, we didn't want them, but like, oh God, you're almost like, we got to get you out of there. You know, they're almost like refugees because that stadium was terrible.
It's wild because Petco is in like such a great spot and like, you know, just makes a ton of sense. And then Qualcomm is just like, I don't know, just wild.
It is godforsaken. That was the word that came to mind when I went to Qualcomm. And like, I was with a wonderful family, one of my friends, MZ, Marianne, you know Marianne. And we were down there in SD, and then like, lovely family, lovely part of town. San Diego's great. And then we go to Qualcomm and it's just like, dun dun dun. Like, you just feel it, you know, it's like oh God, so like, where are we, guys? And so that was a really weird experience for me. I did not love Qualcomm. I will say, I did the same thing as Merp, where I did an anti-award, and it actually goes to the Rose Bowl for UCLA games. That is the worst. That is the single worst college football situation. Like, has to be America. Has to be.
I don't know. The Hurricanes have something very similar.
Do they have to take a bus from one side of town to the other side of town?
Well, it's Miami, so it's shorter, but I think, yeah, because I think they're in actually Miami, and the stadium's in Miami Gardens.
Okay, so for our listeners, for reference, okay, I live like really close to UCLA. Collin lives where the Rose Bowl is. I don't make that drive out without like planning a day in advance. Like, hey guys, I'm heading out there. Let's get lunch while I'm out there. because it's gonna take a while, okay, like to get from West LA to Pasadena. The fact that literally in between these two locations, like right smack dab in the middle, is USC is insane to me. Like, you have to drive on a bus. Like, you have to ride a bus across town, like through literal valleys and mountains to get to your stadium, which is on the clear other side of town. Okay, like, it sucks. That is the worst accessibility. It's like, it just disincentivizes UCLA football fanhood. It seriously does. Like, what student in their right mind at a competitive college is going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get on a bus on a Saturday, cheer for my football team? Like, what the hell? Like,
Dude, if you can't get up on a bus early to, go to UCLA Rutgers, then what type of fan are you?
meanwhile, Poly is like on campus. Like, Poly Pavilion is on campus practically. Like, so I don't get that at all.
And meanwhile, you and I, we would just walk to the games at
But
USC.
we kick the flagpole and then just walk across the street.
What you guys missed is because, I go to the Rose Bowl a lot. And what you guys really missed, though, is just watching everyone get really impatient trying to get out of that parking lot, even on the golf course. They have people high centering their cars in the sand trap, making their day from bad to just shambolic.
Just so much worse. So much worse. And it's probably an SC fan too if it's the Rose Bowl.
So, those are always pretty great.
Yeah, my heart goes out to UCLA football fans because, like, that sucks. If you're a UCLA football fan and you go to the games, like, you're a for real fan. Like, because holy hell, it is so far from the school. Yeah, so that's my accessibility no. And then my surprising accessibility honorable mention, the Angels. The Angels. Dude, have you guys ever been to Angel Stadium? It is one of the most straightforward parking lot stadium, back to the parking lot, go home experiences I have ever had. And it makes the Dodgers look so bad. We're just like, I got in my car and I just left. And it took me, 5 minutes. Wow, that's crazy. And it's maybe because they don't have any fans, but yeah.
No, they do what the Phillies did, or Philly in general, where they have like that and the Honda Center like right next to each other, and they're like you're right next to all the freeways, so like it's just easy in, easy out. If you're gonna have a car stadium, that's like how most people designed to do it.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know why Qualcomm and some of these others like they did like the opposite.
But Qualcomm is like adjacent to the freeway. There's just no freeway going into it. It's just like it just makes no sense. Like, the stadium makes no sense. Like, why wouldn't the taxpayers? You guys are rich. Like, pay for a stadium. Like, what the? Okay. Sorry. I didn't want the Chargers. Okay, I didn't want them. All right. And now, like,
who did?
All those angry, frustrated tailgating fans are going to San Diego State games and like Padres games and pretending baseball's football. Like, stop. Okay. Like, I love baseball, but
different.
Oh God. USA. Which leads into our next segment. All right. It's our 34 seconds, boys. Here we go. 34-second rant. I'm going to time you. Dan, do you have your rant ready? 34 seconds.
I have my rant ready.
All right. Begin.
Today I would like to rant against all the people complaining about the new Champions League group stage format. I believe they went from 32 to 36 teams. Instead of groups, it's one big group, which I think is a fantastic idea. It gives variety. It gives, like, people complain that there's been a lot of competitive games, that with the goal differential, it just becomes a goal scoring competition. But I think that's all very silly. Like, I think the variety that it brings, and just every team being able to play 8 different opponents and then sometimes 10 games just brings a whole new dimension to it.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Collin, you have 34 seconds. I'm not judging. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, actually, I'll just piggyback on that because I'll actually rant against it here a little bit. I'm going to talk about, fixture congestion or whatever. Soccer is getting extremely greedy at this point. Every, you have your league games, which are about 38. Now you have your cup games. Now you have almost a League Cup games. And now they've expanded the Champions League again to 10, which I do like the format. It's much better for first time they did something that didn't only benefit the big teams like that's least they've ever done. But between that, then there's the international tours that they always do in Asia, North America, and now there's the Nations League. So now there's more important. A bunch of friendlies. They're no longer friendlies. They're competitive international games, and so now players are playing like 70 games. It's ridiculous.
No, yeah, 100% agree with that. That's true. But I don't think that the Champions League fault.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to take 34 seconds. If you don't like that the matchup is the Dodgers versus the Yankees, I'm looking at you, Art Baseball. Just shut up. Okay? Nobody cares. All right? We literally had, it's like, oh, high payrolls are ruining baseball. Shut up. No. No, they're not. Okay? We literally had the Rangers versus the Diamondbacks last year. Okay? Did you watch that one? What was your excuse for not watching that one? Huh? It's boring. All right. So you just don't like baseball. You just like complaining. Okay? All right. So if you got a problem with the matchup this year, kick rocks. All right. It's great for baseball. All right. There we go. And that'll do it. Guys, thanks to all of our listeners to getting this far. We went an hour and 15. It was pretty mighty. Thanks as always to Dan Grievitz, Collin Murphy. Collin, happy birthday once again.
Thank you.
Wish your teams all the best of luck. Except for you, Collin. I don't want a meteor. And I just want to say, give us 5 stars, thumbs up. So yeah, hit the subscribe button. If you are tagging along or following along, just send us some love because we got to get this thing growing. And yeah, keep on rocking in the free world. All right,
Go
see you guys
Dodgers.
next time.
Go Meteor.